So we just got to the end of Community Energy Fortnight. So hopefully we've got some new people in the room that are hearing about it for the first time. I'm John Taylor, Head of Capacity Building and Strategic Development at Community Energy England. I will be chairing the session today. Please do use the chat function to introduce yourself. We are recording the session today and we will be emailing the recording and slides afterwards. If you do not wish to be recorded, please keep your camera and your microphone off during the session, and you can use the typing chat for any questions or comments. So today we're joined by two very experienced community energy practitioners who will be our speakers for today, Saskia Huggins and Sonia Bedford. Saskia Huggins is the founder of Make It Count, and Sonia Bedford is a renewable energy solicitor. They are both expert associates working on Community Energy Go, which is the wider program that this webinar is part of. This webinar is part of a series of webinars delivered through Community Energy Go, run by us, Centre for Sustainable Energy, and Ashton. You can look at previous webinar recordings on the Community Energy Go website, and we'll put the link of that in the chat. So moving on to the event overview for today. Firstly, I'll give a short overview of the Community Energy Go programme. We'll then be hearing from Saskia and Sonia for about 30 minutes. This will then be followed by a Q&A for our speakers. So if you do have questions as we go, put them in the chat and we'll get to them later in the Q&A at the end. We will then finish the event with next steps and a feedback survey. So we should all be aiming to wrap up by 2 p.m. So, Community Energy Go. Many of you on the call will be aware of Community Energy Go already, but for those of you who aren't, is a project led by the Centre for Sustainable Energy and delivered with Community Energy England and Ashton. It's funded through the Energy Saving Trust's Energy Redress Scheme, which includes funding from Ofgem and energy companies. The programme supports groups across England to turn their renewable energy idea into reality. It provides groups with expert advice, practical tools, and hands-on support to help you with your community energy projects. Through the programme, we have a network of industry professionals who support groups with tailored support. We have a Community Energy Go website where you can read more about the programme. The website also has a section on eligibility criteria to look at, but essentially we support community energy organisations, non-profit groups, and parish or town councils. You don't need to be an incorporated group to get support. It's a program to specifically support community-owned renewable energy projects rather than energy efficiency work. So ones that are looking to generate power or use power in a smarter way. Of course, energy efficiency can be part of that as an overall project. If you haven't done so already, you can register your interest for support via the website. We will send a link out for this afterwards. We'll put it in the chat as well. I think I'm going to just hand over to Saskia and Sonia, really. And thank you both for joining us for today's session. So I think over to, who do we have first? Is it Sonia?
Me first, yes.
Great, okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to see so many people interested in this introduction to community energy. And whether you're here because you're just curious about what community energy is, or you have a specific project in mind, or you just want to support people in fuel poverty, we hope that we're going to give you an introduction on how to make that possible. This isn't going to be a technical session, so you don't need any previous knowledge. And even though I am a renewable energy solicitor, we're not going to be going into any legalities today, you'll be pleased to hear. But of course, in the question and answer session, you'd be very welcome to ask me any questions around the legal structures or legal nature of any project you might be considering or community setups that you might be thinking about. So we're going to be looking at why community energy matters, what community energy actually is or can be, what it can look like, with a lot of examples to inspire you and to show you the different things that community organisations have been getting up to in the community energy sector. how to get involved and why, and some practical first steps. So if we could go on to the next slide, please. Thank you, Faye. So issues that communities are facing and have been facing for many years, but a lot of which are more prevalent today, and why community energy is even more important now than ever. Nobody can have escaped high energy costs, and this is true whether you're a school, a church, a village hall, a community building, or a domestic individual. And we're seeing, with the rising energy costs for buildings, increasingly looking to community energy to support that and to find ways of assisting in that. An excellent example I've had around high energy costs recently is where a school was facing such high energy costs that it meant that teaching assistants, they were having to have less teaching assistants because their budget wasn't going as far. They contracted with their local community energy organisation to put solar on their roof, and through the energy savings that they've made, which were actually over £20,000 a year, that is the cost of a teaching assistant. So the duality and the number of benefits available from community energy is helping those issues that communities are facing. Fuel poverty aspect, we are looking, community energy covers rural areas, it covers urban areas, city areas, and all of, in every area you will find households with difficult choices, with fuel poverty issues, and a lot of community energy organisations are working to support or provide solutions for those households, or look at alternatives for saving money around energy costs. Of course, climate change, maybe that should have been number one. Who knows? No specific order in this one, but getting together as a community energy organisation to actually make a difference and assist in reducing emissions and becoming more resilient is a reason that I have seen community energy organisations form and start, and being able to build renewable energy projects and get people together to sort issues and sustainability within their local community helps their communities become more resilient. Aging buildings, a lot of community buildings are old, not just churches, which are often very old, but village halls, community meeting places, parish buildings, libraries, schools, and because of that age, they're becoming much more difficult to maintain and to heat. And so looking at communities to face that and help them with their energy by providing renewable energy or providing power purchase arrangements for them, all goes to help that. Energy security is an interesting one because I'm seeing more and more communities that see a lot of renewable energy development locally and see renewable energy as a resource to get involved in, but they also want to get involved in a local buying scheme or purchasing power from these. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it's becoming more and more interesting and exciting, and the ability to buy some of that locally grown energy. Inequality, often you see large scale developments, but you're not seeing communities having the benefit of that. And through the provision of community energy, often the surplus from those can assist those people who need additional funding. It can also provide grants for communities, and it can ensure that everyone's involved in the energy transition. Pressure on funding, grants fewer in the sense for communities and schools and buildings. And we'll talk separately about what grants might be available for community energy, as well as obviously the support you can receive from community Go as well. So if I could have the next slide, please. So what is community energy? Now, this is a question that myself, Saskia, Faith, and John and others have tried to answer. As a solicitor, you'd think I would have a legal definition of exactly what community energy is, but at the moment, one doesn't exist. Effectively, community energy is about people and people working together to improve the community through energy provisions. When people hear the word community energy, you often might conjure up pictures of a solar panel or a wind turbine, but it actually means a lot more than that. It is, of course, solar panels and wind turbines, but it's about people working together to get projects done, about owning projects, making local decisions, about keeping the benefit in the community and reducing energy costs and improving local resilience. One of the best examples I have seen of that is a community that got together about 20 years ago because they had already seen the effects of climate change through flooding in their area. And there's 20 years later, they are still an unincorporated association. So they're not a community company. They are completely flat democratic structure. They're just people getting together, but they've built a community solar farm. They have got EV charging in the village. They have got green garden schemes, and it's all of those things together which makes up community energy. But of course, renewable energy is at the forefront of a lot of what we do in community energy. So I've listed all of the different things that I certainly think community energy can be involved in there. There are, according to Community Energy England's recent surveys, and I think Saskia would talk a bit more about that as well, 614 community energy organisations in the UK, which is quite a high number. When I first started as a solicitor in this sector, I think there were about 10. Maybe that was 20 years ago, not quite a while ago. I'm not saying I've been responsible for the other 500 of them, but it's just amazing how far and how advanced community energy has become, and how the delivery of community energy projects has been accelerated over the last 20 years, helped, of course, by some of the subsidies that were available, like the feed-in tariff. There are also 5,000 jobs now in the community energy sector. I'd actually like to see that increased massively, because I think with so many volunteers doing a lot of work under this scheme, it's important that we create more jobs for people as well, locally delivering these energy projects, which are so important. I think I better go on to the next slide now, because this page I could talk about forever. I was going to talk a bit about the fact that community energy has been really around for over 100 years, but maybe that's one for later, or a coffee. So why are we doing this webinar now? Why are we interested in doing this? Now is a really good time to be exploring community energy. First of all, we have the experience of those 614 community energy organisations to fall back on. We know what we can do to deliver more community energy, and a lot of the projects have already been through all of the trials that a community energy project has gone through. But also politically, we are seeing much more recognition from government that communities have an important role to play in the transition to net zero. And we're seeing policy support through initiatives such as Great British Energy and their local power plan. And also, oh, there goes my light. I need to move a bit more. Sorry, don't want to be sitting around in the dark. Like the local net zero hubs and local authorities and combined authorities who are providing more opportunities for partnership with community energy and funding for community energy. So as well as potential funding from Great British Energy and the local power plants and the hubs, community investment, and by that I mean individuals joining in a share offer or a bond offer to provide finances for community projects, is as popular as it was when interest rates were really high and when these were new schemes around. One of the bond offers I was involved in recently managed to raise £1 million within 2 weeks for a project, and the fact that that is still a popular way of investing, even though the returns for investors are not as great as they used to be, shows that people still want to invest and build this local energy in their area, and it's particularly important for that community investment that people can still do small investments as well as larger ones as well, to get involved and be part of that. Opportunities for partnerships are high with local authorities, schools, churches, and housing associations. I have done work with all of those recently as partnerships or as projects, and there is a much greater interest and knowledge and awareness of community energy being able to do that. And of course, as we've talked about in the previous slides, the opportunity for communities to really make a difference through energy is huge. Right, if I could have the next slide, please. I'm going to get on to the exciting bits, some pictures. So I've got a few slides of projects and types of things that community energy organisations I've been involved with. This is quite an early one. This is an Avalon Community Energy, so based near Glastonbury, and this is on a industrial estate. So it was one of the first sort of industrial estates that we did as a community organisation, and I should say I am a volunteer director of Avalon Community Energy, and it's been really interesting because the installation has been up for 10 years now, and it's working absolutely fine. We've had changes of tenants in that commercial building underneath, and we've continued to be able to sell the power as a community from that. And I think that is why I showed this slide, because often one of the barriers for doing a rooftop project such as this is seen as the fact that the tenants change quite frequently. If I could have the next slide, please. This is just a set of examples of projects, community energy projects, and specifically ones that I've been involved with. I won't go through all of these initiatives, but it's there so that you can see exactly what types of projects and who you can produce projects with and for. I think we'll go on to the pictures next so that I can talk through those, because they're always much more exciting. So this is a very recent installation. This is Staffordshire Community Energy, and it's exciting because this is a brand new build. So this is a local authority building, and it is a leisure centre. So it's quite a brave step for a local authority, a leisure operator, and a community energy organisation to go into partnership together to get a building built with community solar on top. As you can see, it's happened. The contracts were quite complicated, I have to say, but we got there in the end. The share offer is live for that, and I think it just shows how you can work together as a community organisation to get complex contracting and projects over the line, which is still going to deliver benefit for the local authority, for the building occupier, and for the community, more importantly, in that ability to generate a community fund as well. So that's really, really exciting, and I love that project. Well, I love them all, but this one's particularly exciting. And next picture, please. So this is a Bath and West Community Energy installation recently on a school, and the reason I've shown this is because you can see, if you look across the buildings, you can see solar on so it's quite, this is a big installation, but it's across a different range of buildings and types across the school. So it shows how you don't need to just have one single roof type on a site. You can choose newer buildings, the older buildings, and you can different structures of roofs. And it shows the community energy organisation working within also um, um, very close to the Bath conservation area, in that partnership with the school to be able to deliver something quite big, which allows significant generation for the school and more community benefit as well. Next slide, please. This is, you'd think this is an AI generated photo, but it isn't. This is a community owned solar farm, which has been in existence now for, I think this one's coming up to 8 years old, this one. And there's a lot of large scale solar going in at the moment. The small scale has slowed down a bit, and this that is ground mount, and this shows the true benefit of that community solar for the environment and for the land that it's on, as well as generating an income and clean electricity. And the biodiversity reports from this one have shown the doubling of biodiversity within the site over the life scale of the project so far, and increasing all of the time. And I'm quite excited about the future for the community energy ground mount solar, because I think we can get involved in all sorts of biodiversity, agricultural schemes, and community planting around solar farms. So you're creating that additional benefit as well from the solar. But I just think these small scale ground mount solar farms are amazing for communities to get involved in. Next slide, please. This is the, some of you will probably have seen this. There was quite a lot of news around this one. This was the most recent community energy project in the wind sector, and it's also one of the UK's largest single-scale turbines at 4.5 megawatts. So this is near Bristol, and it's Ambition Lawrence Western, and it's their community turbine, which I think started operating 2 years ago. So in a very difficult environment on land owned by Bristol City Council, it now powers equivalent to the amount of all of the homes in the community that delivered it. So it's a very, very exciting and important project. And my next final slide, I think, my last picture. So this is the Isles of Scilly community venture. And it's obviously the Isles of Scilly are an island, so very different to a lot of the urban projects or large-scale rural projects. But what they have done is that they have some ground mount and roof mount solar, and through that they have delivered so carports and a car share scheme, and they have an incredibly successful electric car hire scheme on the Isles of Scilly now, and they have their own local tariff. So it shows that you can start small but make a huge difference, and that could apply to any rural community, whether or not you're an island. So I think that's the end of my pictures, and I'm going to now pass over to Saskia so that we have a time to hear her presentation and then have a good chat at the end with the question session. So handing over to you, Saskia.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Wonderful to be here, and brilliant to see some familiar, friendly names out there in the audience as well. So welcome to you all. Sonia's given us a flavour of the range of community energy projects out there. And now I'm going to drill a little bit deeper into the difference that a community-led approach can bring. So what changes when energy projects are really rooted in local ownership and local participation and the benefits that that brings. So on this slide, if you're a community, as Sonia's highlighted, there are a wide range of issues your community might be facing. And these are some of the ways that community energy can help. So delivering lower electricity bills, perhaps for a community building or perhaps for households, providing support and advice, or beginning to bring funding in for local projects. If you're a local authority, community energy groups can be really valuable partners. So helping councils reaching further, unlocking community resources, and developing solutions that really fit the needs and builds on the opportunities that are specific to a locality that only a really local community understands. And policymakers, well, community energy offers a really practical route for local public participation. So you're supporting decarbonisation while you're building trust, strengthening your local economies, and also, as I'll describe a little bit later, helping make the transition feel fairer. So huge range of different benefits. And I want to spend a little bit of time just showing what that might look like in practice using 3 examples from the very many inspiring organisations that are local to me where I am in Oxfordshire. So Oxfordshire as a county has really embraced the concept of community energy, and it's estimated that around 10% of the county's renewable energy generating capacity is under community ownership. So if we go to the next slide, I want to start with the example of Westmill Energy. So this is situated over in the west of our county. It's actually 3 organisations: Westmill Solar Co-op, Westmill Wind, and Westmill Sustainability Trust, WESET. And that having the wind and solar always makes for a really nice photo. So this photo of Westmill wind and solar members is one that's often used by the community energy sector. I first got involved in Westmills as an investor, and more recently, I've been elected to the Westmill Solar Board. So our members, people like me, we collectively provided much of that capital that was needed to build the projects you can see. And in return, we receive interest payments on our investments. And because so many of us are local, those interest payments are staying close to the place where the energy is generated. So first benefit, instead of paying distant shareholders, the payments that are made traditionally in a traditional company in form of dividends and a community energy organisation as interest payments is staying local to that project. Then combined, the Westmill Wind and Solar projects have now contributed over £1 million in community benefit funding. We're providing grants to the local community, we're funding energy assessments for schools and community buildings, and we're also supporting WESET's education outreach work. And this is just one example of a wider pattern. When ownership models change, the flow of value changes too. So if you go to the next slide, you see just how much more of that value can stay local. There was a brilliant study in 2021 by Aquaterra, and they found that looking specifically at community-owned wind farms in Scotland, they were returning on average 34 times more financial benefit per megawatt installed to those local communities than privately owned wind farms in those areas. And it's not just the ownership that matters, it's how that electricity that we trade can also have an impact. So there was another study for Devon County Council. They found that if the local authority chose to buy electricity from a local community energy generator rather than from a national commercial supplier, it could result in up to 3 times more value for the local economy. So those are just 2 examples of the evidence about this additional value a community energy approach delivers. And we gathered loads of that together in a report here, the Community Energy in Action report, which I wrote for the Energy Learning Network last year. So if you're looking for evidence, do go and have a rummage in that report. There's just a couple of the very many examples from it. So much of this added value that we uncovered is very practical. So it's forms of tangible things that you can quantified, like carbon savings and grant funding. But there's another layer of value too. So community energy isn't just about what's getting built and what's funded, it's about how people get involved. And this participative value can be harder to measure, but it's really central to me. I think why community energy really matters. So next slide, please. So my next example is Oseley Lock Hydro, which is a really great example of participative value. So it's situated on the bank of the River Thames, and the River Thames runs through the heart of my local community in West Oxford. Most of the time, it's a really loved feature of the area. But being built on a floodplain does have its downsides. Flooded roads, which happen occasionally, are an inconvenience, but dealing with flooded homes can be devastating to the families that are affected. Suzanne here is a local resident, and as she says, if we've got to protect ourselves from that destructive power of the river when it floods, why not harness that power to generate renewable energy the rest of the time? And for me, what makes the Oseley Lock Hydro's story so powerful is the way that the local community rallied round to make that happen. So 40% of our investors live within 1 mile of the site. And they're not just investors, they're active members. They volunteer with the project and they come and visit with their friends and family. And we also do take comfort from the fact that in a really small way, we are contributing in the global battle against the climate crisis, and it's that climate crisis which is fueling those extreme weather events that we directly feel locally. So projects like Oseley Lock Hydro are giving people a really practical way to participate in that transition to net zero. And importantly for me, it enabled me to do something by coming together collectively with people that I wouldn't have been able to achieve by myself as an individual. And so that, for me, again, that key part of participative value is that sense of agency, that sense of connection, and the shared purpose that can grow out of getting involved in a practical energy project. If you move to the next slide, for me, that participative value also really matters because the next phase of the energy transition is going to need people to make more changes to their lives, particularly as we're electrifying heating and electrifying transport. And if we're going to make those changes, people need advice that they can trust, and it's got to come from people and organisations that feel really credible to them. So I think that's where community energy can play a really distinctive role as a trusted source of information. And again, there's evidence to back this. A study that was carried out by Plymouth Energy Community found that their trained and branded volunteers achieved a 4.5 times higher uptake for home energy assessments than British Gas trained and branded counterparts. And also the Community Energy England State of the Sector survey that happens every year has found that 3/4 of the members and supporters who responded said that their relationship with a community energy organisation helped them get involved in another sustainability initiative. So groups are a valuable source of trusted information and they're helping turn that trust into action. Next slide, please. So far I've looked at practical value, what community energy delivers on the ground, that participative value, how people get involved, build trust and feel part of the change. But there's a third layer, and that's the transformative value that it delivers. So this is where community energy starts to shift, not just individual projects, but the wider system around it. I wanted to highlight Low Carbon Hub, another Oxfordshire organisation that's a really great example of this. And part of its impact, of course, comes from its substantial portfolio of renewable installations that it's built up using community investment. But its role goes way beyond that, so clean electricity and the local community benefits it's delivered. The hub was part of Project Leo, Local Energy Oxfordshire. It was a 4-year, £42 million collaboration between Oxfordshire community energy organisations, local academics, the local authorities, companies, and SSEN, who are the local DNO. And we worked together to better understand the potential for flexibility, so the way that we use and store and generate electricity at the grid edge, and how that flexibility could support a transition that was not only faster but also fairer. And for me, it really highlighted that key role community energy can play in ensuring people have the opportunity to become active participants in this energy transition, not just passive consumers of energy. So next slide for me, linked to this is that issue of fairness and of justice. Our energy system, it's so much more than the wires and switches that make up its physical infrastructure. It's also a social system. It's developed by people and used by people. And as we're doing this transition to a net zero energy system, the changes that we need to make are going to be as much about people and the way we interact with that energy system as it is about the technology. If that energy system is going to be transition rather is going to be fast enough, it's also got to feel fair. People need to see where they fit, why it matters, and how they personally might benefit. This stat here is polling from the Social Market Foundation. 48% of people feeling that the net zero transition was happening to them, not with them. And I find that really concerning. If people feel change is being imposed on them, or that the benefits are flowing elsewhere, it becomes much harder to build that support that we need, and it leaves people feeling disempowered, overlooked, and frustrated. Now, I'm not going to say that community energy can solve every issue of fairness, but it can help change the pattern by changing routes for local ownership, local benefit, a local voice, local participation. And we can make that transition something people are invited into, not something that's simply done to them. So if Sonia and I have got you geared up, my next slide is saying, how might you get started? So one way to start is to identify a local need or a local opportunity. It might be a school or village hall that's struggling with energy costs, or it might be that you're aware people locally are concerned about rising cost of energy. And that local opportunity might be a school roof, a parish council that wants to act, or you've got a group of motivated residents. And that power of people coming together. So many of the community energy groups I know started with a small group of people around a kitchen table asking what they can do together that would make a real difference locally. From there, there's some practical foundations to think about. The first, it's people and skills. I cannot stress enough that community energy is not only for technical experts. Groups need people who can organise, chair meetings, manage money, people who understand and can hook into local social networks, communicate well, and really enthuse others to get on board. The next area is governance. I know Sonia said we weren't going to talk about legal things too much. I'm just going to say that the right legal structure depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're a small awareness raising group, you'll need a different legal form and a different governance style, perhaps from an energy advice service or a solar park that's funded through community shares. Third area is funding. Finding a small grant that can help you get people together and kickstart your initial activities. It might be feasibility funding to explore the viability of a project, or you've found your project, you know it works, and now you're into the territory of raising community shares to bring investment together for a really major project. Sonia's already mentioned the value of partnerships. Community energy really works best when it's local, rooted in those local partnerships. Might be your local council, local schools, faith groups and village halls, installers, voluntary sector networks, anything that allows you to pool resources, pull together that know-how and reach wider networks of people, all while you're working together to deliver shared objectives. So start by identifying what your first step might be, that in a way that's useful and manageable and connected to something that people care about locally. If we move on to the next slide, as Sonia said, this is a great moment to be thinking and acting around community energy. There's more support than there's been for some time, and it's brilliant to see representatives of some of those support organisations on this webinar. GB Energy and the local power plan is signalling a stronger national focus. The GB Energy Community Fund is due to reopen to support feasibility and development work, and there's promised new funding mechanisms to help with capital costs too. There's practical support. John explained at the beginning the support you can get through Community Energy Go, everything from helping you work out your business case, your governance structure, think about community engagement and understanding those legal structures. There's also the Energy Learning Network, which has got mentoring and webinars and opportunities to learn from other people who are already doing this work. In terms of getting started, you might want to team up with existing groups. So the Community Energy England website's got a map so you can find your local nearest community energy group, and all the member organisations have got those maps. You could invest in a current share offer, which is a great way to see what it's like to be part of a community energy organisation from the inside. Or you could offer your skills. Unity's Community Energy Connect platform is a way to connect with organisations looking for your skills, or you might want to get involved through a national initiative like Big Solar Co-op. Alternatively, if there's no existing local community energy group in your area, start by gathering together a few interested people, might be around a specific opportunity, or start a green drinks, do a film screening and take it from there, see where your energies and your interests take you. So I'm going to stop there. I hope you've heard something today that sparked your interest, and that if you're not already involved in community energy, we can encourage you to take that first step and get a little bit more involved through one of those many different routes. So I'm going to hand back now, I think, to John.
Hello. Okay, yep. Am I there? Great. Thank you very much, Sonia and Saskia. That was great. Yeah, I learned some new things there as well. Yeah, that stat of up to 10% of energy being, is it in Oxford, being owned by community? That's a pretty impressive statistic. It'd be great to see that kind of catching up in the other counties too. So we've had a few questions coming in from the chat. One question I've got about, I think the point you made, Saskia, about people not just wanting to be spectators with all this is kind of, yeah, at the heart of community energy for me. Like, people want to have a role in this energy transition and feel the benefits from it. And I think we've seen that, yeah, in historic parallels as well. Do you have a feel, is there a difference between people wanting to do that purely as a voluntary thing, or should we be aiming to make jobs from this as well in community energy?
I think it's both. People can benefit in different ways. So, I think it depends to some extent how involved you want to be. And it might be that you get involved in doing an everyday thing, like the way that you're using energy in your home, or it might be that this is something that inspires you so much that you want this to become the core of your career and what you want to do. But certainly there is a move within the sector to want to be able to support everyone who would like to really dedicate a lot of time to do that in a way that is remunerated. Sonia, have you got thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned briefly in the presentation about, there being sort of 5,000 jobs in the community sector and 200,000 volunteers. And, I think that, that's a good statistic, but I'm always of the view that, volunteers are the stalwarts of the community energy organisations. But when you're getting into big projects, and you're making decisions and you're spending time, then that should be paid for. Community energy people are skilled people. And it's important to continue that and to engage more younger people, to create career paths and to get a lot more people involved in doing it. So I always advocate for having paid roles at all where possible, and for communities applying for grants to put overheads for people as well as professionals in into those if they can at all do that. I mean, I'm a non-exec director of Bath and West Community Energy, and they have 40 employees, and that to me is a huge success, because that's driven, those employees are paid for from the turnover of the renewable energy projects, and specific grant funded projects as well. So that is a good goal to have. So yeah, we need both, but I want people to be paid for hard work.
Okay, great, thanks. We've had a question in the chat from Paul in Newark. He's from a sports association, and he's interested in what contribution sports clubs can make to community energy sector. And I suppose this could apply to other non-community focused community organisations as well, if you'd like to have a go at answering that.
I mean, I'd start
Sure.
by
Yeah.
understanding what, seeing if there is a community energy organisation in your locality, because as a sports club, you've probably got building, and so you might have a good roof that could be used to host community panels. You'll have a great network of members that you might be able to help the community group reach out to, and particularly if they are running events that might be of interest to your members. It might also be that your members might want more than just to hear about events. It might be that they're partnership organisations that are interested in helping your members take better control of their energy use. So I'd say I'd start by chatting to your local organisation and finding out what partnership opportunities or collaborative opportunities might exist out there that could be to the benefit of both of you.
Can I speak? Can I just say something? Can I ask something? Yeah.
Of
Can you hear
course,
me?
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's this. I look round. Obviously, it's a sports association. We're not a sports club,
Right.
but all of the sports clubs locally, they've all got pavilions with huge roofs and none of solar panels. But there doesn't seem now it would seem logical to put solar panels on them, but uh, uh, generally speaking, this is not always the case, but generally speaking, clubs don't have a lot of cash, spare capital. That's the big issue for clubs. And what they do tend to spend the money on is either football pitches or floodlights and things like that. And that is obviously an issue. So how do you overcome? So capital expenditure is a big problem. And so how would you suggest? Is there any funding out there? How would you suggest that we tackle that?
So there may be grant funding that's suitable specifically for sport associations if you wanted to go down a donations-led approach, and it might be from grants, it might be asking members if they wanted to make a contribution, because putting solar panels on that roof would help that club be resilient against energy cost shocks for a long time into the future. Or it may be that you could look at a community energy investment model. I'll give an example. One of the very first rooftop solar projects I was involved with was with a local bus company, and they had a big bus depot roof, and they could have spent some of their capital on putting solar panels in, but as they decided instead that they wanted to partner with a local community energy organisation who brought in community investment to own and to install and manage that solar roof. Because as they said, we're a bus company. We want to spend our capital on buying buses, not on solar panels. And that way, it was an opportunity for both the community and the bus company to benefit.
Okay. Okay. I mean, there's nothing. I look at my local authority. I don't see any particular drive to support solar panels on pavilion roofs. That's the thing. I guess we've got to try and make something out of ourselves.
John,
Yeah, I think and working working with the community organisation could accelerate that. It does, I mean, that there are, without getting down too many legal pathways, does depend on how the building is owned, who owns it, and if there's sports council involvement and local authority involvement. But all of those things are feasible. And if there's no local community organisation, then going to a national one like Saskia mentioned, Big Solar Co-op or another organisation who does more national one. But it's certainly I've done quite a number of sports, football clubs and sports. So as long as the roof is suitable, there's an energy use, and you've got the permissions to do it, then community is a good option without you having to spend that money.
Okay.
and as Steve has said in the chat, do put in an expression of interest into Community Energy Go, because we can help you explore that further. And brilliant. And then the other thing to bear in mind is we're waiting to hear the details, but there is going to be a GB Energy funding stream specifically for local authorities working in conjunction with local community energy groups. And so that might be, we don't yet know what the details are, but that might be an opportunity for your local authority to become more interested in this area.
Okay, we've had a couple of questions coming in the chat relating to volunteers again. Both in how do you go about finding the right volunteers and how many is a good number to start with to get you going? Is there a minimum number legally you need for some organisations?
There's no well, it depends. If you're just an organisation getting together to discuss things, then as many as possible would be my answer. you need hundreds of volunteers, but if you were talking about setting up a community benefit society, then you're going to want at least sort of 4 or 5 founder members for that. And in terms of legal requirements, if you are going to incorporate, then you will need a secretary and a treasurer. You don't need a lawyer, but it really helps if you've got one, because then you don't have to spend money on one. That's why I'm really popular, free legal advice. But I would always recommend getting as many people as possible. But interestingly, locally, we had a new group start up looking at potential wind farm opportunities. And I'm quite used to some of the old groups struggling for volunteers at the moment. And we had 20 people who put their hand up to be a director. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So, if you can get that sort of engagement in actually taking over legal responsibility initially, then if you've got more people, you've always got, because you have to retire directors for community organisations. You can't just stay forever. And you have to be voted in. And so having more people means that you get a good change around of that and the ability to do that. On attracting volunteers, it really depends on what it is that you're trying to do. I find that people will come into what what excites them or what interests them. So if it's say a suburb or a village wanting to do a sustainability project that has some energy in it, that's more likely to get more people along, because people will feel that they have something to offer to that. And and providing refreshments always helps attract people. Cake generally.
And
Bath and
I
West
would,
Community Energy started in a
yeah,
pub, so
and I would add to what Sonia's saying that sometimes it's starting from what people are able to offer and what they're interested in, and being really clear about the kind of volunteer opportunity. So rather than come and volunteer, say, we have the specific activity happening, could you come and do X? Or we need somebody with these particular skill sets, because it helps people better identify and see themselves in that. And again, speaking from experience, I started off my life in community energy because they were looking for 20 local households who were prepared to see if they could reduce their carbon footprint by 10% over a year. And now I'm a director of two community energy organisations. When I signed up, I thought I was agreeing to, to do a few little things in my local community and meet with my neighbours and chat about how we were going to install radiator panels. I had no idea I would be running to community energy organisations, and I'd never been a director of anything before. So again, it's funny thinking of it as stepping stones and having lots of people who might be able to do ad hoc, small scale things, but how you then nurture those relationships and how you can, before you know it, suddenly they're on your board.
There's lots of familiar stories like that. It's one of my favorite bits is hearing how people get started in community energy. So thank you both. We're getting close to 2 p.m. now, so I think we're going to have to leave it there for the Q&A, unfortunately. But we'll just move on to the wrap-up slide now. So yeah, thank you both for your speaking. Thank you to all for coming along. So big thank you to all our brilliant speakers. We'll email the slides and recording for this session to you all in the next few days. Look out for the next webinar that will be after the summer holidays in September now. We'll email you the sign-up link once it's ready. If you haven't already, please register your interest in support through Community Energy Go and read more about it on the website. Yeah, all this is being put in place to build on the experience we've all collectively built over the last 10 years to help this next wave of community energy be a success. So yeah, the more we talk and share ideas, the better. So finally, we're going to share a feedback survey. So please complete that if you can, and it'll pop up on your screen now. We're going to leave the session running for a minute or two to give yourself some time to complete that. But other than that, yeah, thanks again to Saskia and Sonia for your time and expertise this lunchtime, and hope to see you all in the future. Okay, thank you very much.